Lance, what's going on today?
Rhett, how you doing, my man?
Hey.
Got your mug?
Oh, yeah.
You can see.
Swag is here.
I know. We'll have to,
like swag.
I might have to bug you to send me one, Rhett.
we'll have to send them to our guests.
And
That would be
I'm
amazing.
excited because eventually Vuori is going to hear us.
Viore.
And,
Lance and I are trying to get a deal with Viore. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's so good.
Yeah, so we heard Vuori also would like to have, one of these. So we'll send them one. They're our friends. They call us every now and then. We wear their stuff for them.
It's going to be great.
Well, Lance, welcome to episode 52.
52.
Yeah. And I'm excited. We are going to venture a little bit outside the RT world today.
Yes.
It's what do you call it? Adjacent RT?
Yeah.
RT adjacent, yes.
RT adjacent. Thank you.
We're
And
consulting the experts.
That's right. Consulting the experts. I like that. I'm going to do my best to introduce our guests because it's kind of a long history and scattered emails over the years. So
Okay.
Our guest, which I can call Dr. Tamara Powell, is an assistant teaching professor in communications at UC Boulder, or actually UC Boulder Denver campus.
Denver.
And
yeah. University of Colorado, Denver.
Denver. I'll let her say more, but essentially she was around Bel Air Pres back in the day when I was the college pastor, and she was in and around the college ministry at the time, and she was a student at UCLA. And then over the years, in fact, I was just looking the other day, we have some correspondence like 2012, 2013, and then again in 2016 and 17 and 18, just talking about different things that she was listening to or that she was reading about. We would share some information. Her and her husband were talking about my wife and I maybe coming out and doing some marriage work there at one point, intensives. We talked about the hideaway stuff. And then she's asking questions about RT. And then I find out she's using RT in her work as a communications professor. So that is my long intro to kind of lead everybody into this conversation. So Tamara, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Yeah. Rhett and I have a long history and it's been great to keep in touch over the years. And Rhett really just been a really influential person in my life, both in my faith journey, but also in my intellectual journey by, sort of introducing me to the church and also introducing me to RT. So I'm super grateful to you. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I was telling you earlier, I think I was 26 when I came to Bel Air and 27 when I took over. And so you were a college student at probably 18, 19, 20. And, now I'm turning 51 this month and it's cool. There's so many.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Almost. There's a lot of like your friends that are my friends today, that I have families and kids. And I'm just thankful for God's grace all these years that even when I didn't know what I was doing back then, that college ministry was really powerful in my own life. And Bel Air is where I met my wife and have some of my best friends today. So that was a significant season for me. So anyways, I won't go down memory lane too much.
No, I love it. And it was a very significant season for me as well. I was, I think the second or third year at UCLA and I played volleyball in college. And so I was friends with like JD Groves and some of those people. And they were like, hey, come to, this college ministry thing, I didn't have like a concept for what it was. I was like, oh, I don't know. And I think the first thing I came to was a harbor cruise.
That's a good way to start off.
No, I think the first thing it was there was kind of like a talent show, and somebody asked me to play on the piano, like accompany them for the talent show. So I showed up and I was like, wow, okay, these people don't suck. Like this is great. Like this feels safe enough to come back to. So I would come and I would just kind of sit in the back pews, kind of by myself. I had heard the gospel. I was really curious about it. There was something so compelling, but also deep skepticism. Just, I had to come in and spend some time just sniffing around, kind of, like, is this okay? Are these people out to harm me? What's going on here? And you just created such a safe and welcoming and just such hospitality to people like me who were skeptics at the time. There was just space for us to come and be there. So I was really grateful. And that sort of ignited my journey of following Jesus. I got baptized not long after graduating from UCLA. I ended up moving down to San Diego for grad school at UC
Nice.
San Diego. It's where I got my PhD in communication, and got baptized during those years and met my husband, and just an outpouring of good community and all those things from just that, I don't know, just the the taking the risk to come and sit in those back pews and try it, try
Wow.
community. Yeah. Super grateful.
That's interesting. I kind of look through the lens now of love and trust, and identity and safety a lot. And you just had me think about that community of college students that invited you out, and like that we met on Wednesday nights in the church. And I think back, like there was just a lot of like loving and safe people
Yep.
that made it a great just environment for people to grow and be changed.
It really did. Yeah. Yeah. And I won't drop all the names, but you kind of know who I ran with. And
Yeah.
that crew just, there were people in all these different places in their faith journey, people that have been following Jesus their whole life, and really grown up in the church. And then there were people that were like kicking the tires like me. And there were people that were, I don't know, maybe doing crystals or universalism or something too, but they were like also there. And, like there was space for everything. Everyone
That's nice.
could belong. Yeah. So thank you.
You guys kept me on my toes for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, actually, I'm curious, where did you grow up?
I grew up in San Diego.
You did? Okay.
Yeah. So in Powell, land,
Oh,
not
that's
too
right. We
far.
talked about this
Nice.
Yeah.
because my wife is a graduate of
Yes,
Powell
from
High
Powell
School.
High.
That's right.
Yeah, around the same time as my brother. So we'll have to see
We'll
if
have
those connections. Yeah.
It is a
Wow.
small world.
It is a
It is
small world.
such a small world.
I know. Wild.
It's our
Lance's-
first introduction to one another too. So
I know.
I'm doing my
and then
best
we're
not
finding
to
we have
play
all
the
these
name
paths.
game.
Yeah.
the name game. You don't want to do the name
exactly
game, Lance,
right.
right now?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be like, oh, do you know? Do you know?
Right. Exactly.
Like I can just imagine listening to the podcast, be like, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't want to do too much to that to the listeners. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more, because I was looking through, your course syllabus and some of the bios online.
Yeah.
And what you all are reading and studying, and I thought it was just a really intriguing communications class, that people don't often think about when they think about communications. In my mind, what they think about. And so describe a little more, if you can, what it is that you teach there, and kind of what I don't know, what as a professor, like what your hopes and goals are in this course that you teach.
Yeah. Yeah. So my kind of specialization within communication is in organizational and health communication, and also like qualitative methods. So I kind of teach courses that fall under those areas. And communication is a really broad field. It really integrates a lot of other disciplines. And so you can have everything from like journalism to production to media studies to critical media studies to, kind of all over the place. And health communication kind of takes a little something from all of those. It's kind of a cross section of all of communication. Whereas most of the other areas of communication kind of dive down in their lane, if that makes sense. So I do get an opportunity to teach a lot of different sort of stuff across communication. But we wanted to develop a course that was kind of not exactly an interpersonal communication course that could be targeted towards students that were preparing to go into helping professions. So and then we wanted to put it in our health communication kind of pathway. So I was like, let's develop a course on communication and healing for, our pre-nursing, pre-medical, maybe therapist, future therapists, or people that, for me, I was interested in people that might want to go and be clergy in some denomination someday, which we don't have a ton of, but there are some students that are interested in theological study as well. And I try to find them too, try to connect with them. So we wanted to develop a course. We originally were talking about as kind of like interpersonal, kind of, could it be like a patient provider kind of therapeutic communication course? And I was like, I feel like it needs to be broader, just based on kind of our student population, than just a therapeutic communication course, which is great and usually offered at more of like the graduate level. We developed this first at the graduate level, but a nursing school or a medical school, they're going to offer often some course in therapeutic communication, which is kind of focused on that patient provider encounter. And I was like, I wanted to kind of cut across helping professions. So that's kind of so that we could kind of also draw on, you have to think strategically. Sometimes things come together based on the strategy too, not just like intellectual sort of like, this would be cool. So that was like kind of what our department needed at the time as well. But I was like, it'd be so great to kind of look at healing and how communication facilitates healing kind of through all these different levels, kind of intrapersonally, interpersonally, and, organizationally, across systems, and like to be able to kind of zoom in and out and how communication facilitates that. And I just see, my kind of lens on communication that kind of integrates the gospel is that the gospel is this great message of reconnection with God, and communication is really kind of the connection of minds or of groups, or it means to make common, right? The kind of like Latin root of communication is to make common, and I kind of see communication as whatever it is that facilitates that reconnection. And so I think of Jesus in many ways as sort of like communication from God. He's Emmanuel, he's with us. So that's kind of like my interest and heart around it. And so yeah, with the course, I wanted to be able to cut across those layers. Now, we are not a faith-based organization, so I always approach my courses as like just spacious for anyone of any particular faith or perspective or whatever. So I do offer sometimes, an article or two that might integrate Christian theology, but I try to also allow space for other theologies and include authors that come from other theologies, and including, we might get to talk about how I use Friedman, who is, of sort of Jewish faith as an author. So that was a little bit longer. Maybe I took it some other directions, but I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. I have so many questions, but Lance, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I was curious around I have a lot of questions too. What do we want to do, Rhett?
Well, I'm like thinking, I don't think they taught us how to communicate in my MFT program. It's just like assumed you're going to pick it up or something.
Yeah.
You don't remember the class on communication with Cameron Lee where you had like the
active listening?
It was it was like this pragmatics of communication book where A and B, and then you have context and all this other stuff.
No, I do not.
No, that was a tough. That class. Yeah. That class made communication look so boring.
I think you're describing like a transmission model of communication, right? So you've got like a sender who's got a message. They're going to send it through a channel to a receiver. There might be noise. It's going to interfere. Yeah. And that's like kind of the classic model of communication that most people know or encounter. And, my hope with this course, but also just for anyone who's going into the helping professions, would be that they also encounter what I would describe as kind of a cultural model of communication, which is that, sure, we can have like messages, but there's this whole milieu really, around communication. And it's not just that communication is the creation of like a message, but it's also the creation of a culture. And things communicate, built environment communicates, what we do with our bodies communicate. There's so many pieces that we can unpack. So transmission model is really good for when you have a specific message you want to be understood. Cultural models of communication are good for when you're wrestling with things where you're like, I'm saying this and this is happening, or like I'm saying this and people are getting, why is that? And sometimes we have to have different language for that than the transmission model. Yeah.
I would say, this is a 16-week course, with introduction, conclusion, and I was really intrigued by the different titles you had for like different weeks and different authors you were reading. Most that I've read, there's some I'm like, I have not read that person. I want to read them, but we find the subject of you title it Peacemaking, in week 10, which is, it seems like that's the introduction to RT. So I guess I'm curious, how did you come to RT? How did you hear about it? And how does that end up in your course essentially?
Yeah. And so I found out about RT through you, Rhett. I mean, I think,
I posted
post
something.
grad, just kind of, we kept in touch lightly and would listen into your early podcasting kind of days when you were without Lance, not as good
That's right.
quality without Lance. No, I'm just kidding. It was great.
That's okay.
Was learning lots of things, and just enjoying it, and read your first couple of books that came out as well. And yeah, and I think it was when you did an episode on the pain and peace cycle, I was like, oh my gosh, this model is so clear. It's so concise. It's so easy to teach, or not easy. I'm not trying to say it's too simple, but it's like, this is something that you can really sink your teeth into quickly and share with people and kind of get people looking. And there's lots of other models that, I think have a cyclical sense to this. Something like EFT also has this, the dance, like, it's not the only one that has that, but it felt to me the most concise and clear. And I was like, I really like this. I want to kind of play around with this. Can I use it in class for interpersonal communication? Can I, it's also intrapersonal, right? Like, can I use it for talking about how we talk about to ourselves? And, so I just started kind of playing around with it and trying to use it in a class or two. And then I was like, I want to take some more time and like actually have students read, something from, from that's, some published work, rather than just kind of working with the 4 steps in a class or something. So this was my first time in this class having students read, Hargrave, and that's kind of what I chose to use. I know there's so many awesome authors as well, but I'll just, since people can't see it, I'll just kind of read through,
They
at
can
least in
see.
this class, the way the way I've kind of structured each week kind of explores like a theme.
Yeah.
And I start by talking about integration, and integration is where I begin, because I think it's kind of, as I described earlier, I think it's really key to thinking about healing. It's reconnection and difference maintained, right? It's this idea of like things can be together and unique. And Dan Siegel.
This is your definition of integration. This
is kind of my definition of integration based on Dan Siegel's work. So we kind of start there in the class, because Dan Siegel talks, down to the molecular level, up to the systemic level, like that. The integration is making sure that these things can be connected and but still differentiated. And so we kind of start there. We get into therapeutic relationships, presence, listening, alliance, connection, vulnerability, attachment, right before peacemaking. And so for peacemaking, I have them read some Hargrave, understanding the patterns of pain, and then finding truth and the peace cycle. So I have them kind of read a little more in depth about the pain and peace cycle. And I have my students kind of work on modeling their own pain and peace cycle.
Are you using, which resources are you using with your students?
I'm using that from, let's see, what's the co-author on that? I think it's it's in this one. I could be
the original.
I could be wrong. I have a couple, because there's also Terry and Nicole's book too. I'm like, maybe this is from Terry and Nicole's, or is it from this one? I'm forgetting, but
you pull it from the book and then have cool.
Yeah.
And anything we discuss here, we'll post in the show notes.
I can give you the actual reference.
No, and I have your syllabus up too, because I'm interested in that flow. I think what I'm curious about, like in your role as a professor, and you come across a theory that you like how do you learn it, and make it embodied for you?
Yeah, wow, that's a great question. I mean, I think with RT specifically, I read, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you did your episode on the pain and peace. Like, I think I was exposed to it in like 2019. So maybe it was 2008. Was it right before the pandemic? So pandemic hits and I'm like, I'm going to go back to that podcast that Rhett did. Yeah. I'm like, there's something for me in this, not just like, this is going to be interesting to other people and I can teach it to other people. And I think I found the 4 steps really helpful to me during the pandemic. So I was just reading more on RT for my own well-being during the pandemic, right? I was like, I need tools to walk through this crisis. I need resources myself. And so I think when it comes to kind of bringing theory through as an educator, I do try to sit with something for a time, at least a year or two, before I start introducing it into my teaching. Sitting with a text, you know, with RT, it's very obvious you need to, how you can apply it to your own life. Some other theories maybe are not quite as obvious, but it's like,
Right.
I'm going to work on my own 4 steps before I'm trying to kind of say, hey, you guys should do this too. You know, so I think I spent a good year or two with it during the pandemic. And I taught this course for the first time in 2024, I think.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it was a little while of sitting with it. Yeah.
What was the responses to your students? What
Students love it. It's a clear model, right? Like I think you know, I've heard both of you talk about how the people that you work with in your practice love it because it's like they can leave the room and apply it that day. You know, sometimes it takes time to have enough insight into your steps, and or especially those sort of first 2 components of the cycle of the pain cycle, like it can be hard. And I think sometimes what students will come up with in the classroom, I'm like, I don't know if that's your pain cycle exactly. You may need to spend more time with that. But it's an invitation. It's an invitation for them to explore it. And I trust that if God has something for them in it, he's gonna, you know, like, just like he did that for me. It was like, there was something for me in it. If there's something for them in it, that they'll keep wrestling with it and keep pursuing some insight. Though I, you know, have wondered sometimes, I'm like, oh, is it irresponsible to introduce them to this concept without walking with them fully, like a practitioner would, to kind of really get deep insight? But then I was like, I don't know, we do marriage conference and things like that. And it's somewhat the same, right? We don't know, the follow-up's not there, like can't always be there, but it's still, I don't know, an invitation. Yeah.
And this is helpful actually, because Lance, I'm thinking about it. Like, Tamara, you might be the first that we've talked to, at least on this podcast. Like, a lot of time it is introduced to people in a therapeutic setting where there's like, you're going to walk through and come alongside them, or like in a coaching setting. But I don't think it should be limited to those settings. And so this is like, as you share this, like, I'm thinking about all this. I think it's really helpful. Like, yeah, I am curious, like, what does I guess it would be like any other book. Like I have Friedman's book back there too that I love, and differentiation of self and all that. And there's a lot of examples in there that nobody walks out with me, and I got to go out and figure out how to implement in my own life. And so what did you any other like discoveries or insights as you were like introducing this model, or as you sat with it yourself, that have been really helpful to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, I'll start with something that has been the most difficult for me, is sort of working with students on kind of like their 4 steps individually and then relationally, which I love how, you know, Relate Strong curriculum like does that well. But for me, I have found that hard kind of teaching both. And so I have just kind of stuck a little bit with more of like the individual kind of 4 steps, but I'm wanting to do more with sort of the relational intersection of the two. Yeah, I think I think I don't know that I have any more to say on that. I'm like, let me sit with that a little more, and if something comes, we'll come back to it.
One of the things you were talking about earlier that I found really interesting around this kind of idea around the organization communication elements, and what makes, and you know, I was raised in the era of the Beastie Boys, so we get that ill communication every now and then. But I was thinking about like good organizational communication, and things that you've read, things that I know this kind of like part of your flow, like when you're thinking from, because in restoration therapy we talk about usness, right? And that's when the parts come together, and what we represent as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of curious around how that, um, what that would look like from the organizational communication. It seems like you get
Yeah.
quite big with it. So I'm kind of curious from the macro
Yeah,
flow.
yeah, yeah. I think this is actually something I think I'm still wrestling with. So maybe that's
I
why
love
that
it.
other question stopped. I
No,
was
it's
like, I
good.
don't know what else to say about this. But this is actually what I've been wrestling with recently, which is I think the most
Yes.
recent time I reached out to Rhett was more around the organizational. Because I
Yeah.
think, yeah, we could do usness into teaming or something like
Mhm.
that. But there's not the same level of commitment and entitlement within a lot of like organizational teams that are at least like professional teams, right? And so I'm like,
Yeah.
how does that translate? Because yeah, I think entitlement being a key concept in RT, it's like you're not entitled in the same way to create an us with like so I work with, like I said, a lot of healthcare teams, right? So like
Yeah.
a healthcare team, is there entitlement within that? Yes, no, yes. I think that's something I'm still kind of wrestling with. I think there is something there. I think people want usness and teaming, right? Like
Hmm.
they want to be on a team that feels like there is some level of entitlement to love and safety. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that actually is the question I'm wrestling with right now, Lance. So those, yes, good. To answer Rhett's question, Lance's
Yeah.
question.
Well, I
Yeah.
think we're all wrestling with these things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's like from like the RT lens of like looking at the truth, like knowing our identity, knowing our sense of safety. And when we don't, like we have that wrestling of the blame and the shame that just makes us go
Hmm.
crazy. Like that's not good for a team environment or communication.
Oh
They
yeah,
kind of,
absolutely. And I think,
in
a lot of
control.
teams, especially in healthcare too, will talk about like psychological safety. I'm like, okay, so what are the like preconditions for that? And how do you address, how would you do repair for a team around that? And I think that's where I'm trying to kind of play with RT right now is could you, for example, again, in a healthcare team or a clinical practice team, right? Could you come up with like 4 steps that a team could do together?
Yeah.
In the way that you might in a marriage, or like, let's do our steps together. Are there like, would having that language be helpful to teams to be like, oh, hey, there's kind of been a violation of safety, or I guess you probably want to use identity rather than love, but
Either way.
could a team develop that kind of language so that they have kind of a communication procedure for reestablishing safety, or a procedure for, and not a procedure, like
Yeah.
it's a way of providing um, a tool that a team could potentially use. But I'm still exploring that. I think I'm still trying to, that's why I reached out to you, Rhett, because I was like, are you doing this in some of your coaching work? Are you talking about it that way with anyone you're coaching? How is that coming up for you as you work with any of the organizations you've worked with?
Yeah, I'm still like fumbling my way a little bit, because the first time I did it, I went into an environment. They had me come in and coach was like 2015
Mm.
or 16, maybe. It was like a Hilton hotel, and I did a Marriott one, like a 3-day workshop, and I was just using straight RT stuff and trying to change
Mm-hmm.
some of the language for
Yeah.
some of the
Mm-hmm.
environment. And I didn't go back and do more training and coaching until years later. And so I think like this is one of the reasons I like having you on, because I think you're raising good questions and trotting some ground that um, people are thinking about, but we don't really have answers to.
Yeah.
Um, and if maybe this is okay with you, I mean,
Yeah.
you may want to say something about your husband, who you're married to, and why you're thinking about
Yeah.
some of this too, because I think it's
Totally.
just you're obviously involved in the church world. You teach students at university, but you're married to somebody in the medical world, and I think you're
Yeah.
thinking pretty broad on some things.
Yeah, yeah. So my husband is a physician, and he works in physical medicine and rehabilitation, and he's a pediatric provider. And so he has recently opened up a clinic at his hospital. So it's Children's Hospital, Colorado, for functional neurologic disorder. And so these are kids that present with neurologic symptoms, but there's not a structural cause. And used to be in the DSM as conversion disorder. That's getting kind of rebranded in some ways, because it's actually more helpful to think about it in terms of function is why that word has kind of been brought in. And really, the best approach to healing FND is kind of getting a whole family system involved in believing and hoping that the child can get better. There's no structural reason why the child can't move through and have recovery from these neurologic symptoms, because they're not structural, but they're showing up. And so why? What are those underlying psychological causes for that, and kind of redirecting families from medical overuse to therapeutic support. So we've been thinking a lot through kind of the families that are having these experiences with their children, and what would be helpful to them. How do we talk to them about what's possible? And we've been kind of thinking about, this clinic is kind of a communication intervention. It's not saying you aren't having these symptoms. The symptoms are real. You're experiencing these symptoms, and healing is possible. And so we want to reframe how you're thinking about this. It's a communication intervention. And, from kind of an RT perspective, we've wondered, is it something that the body is doing rather than having, kind of like anxiety, right? Like, is it something that the body is doing to deal with certain stressors? Whether it's spasticity or involuntary movements, things like that. Right. Can we think about it that way? Like, we've been like, can we think about it that way? I don't know. Is that right? Trying to kind of think about all right, the differences between this and malingering, and like, how are these? Okay, so maybe this is still something that the body is doing subconsciously, right? And so we've just been kind of playing with that.
Which I love that idea, because I think when we get into medical mode, we're like trying to be diagnosticians, right? And one of the cool things that Terry is like, he's like, insight, that's 20% of the work. We need to be doing 80% practicing, getting people in the flow. And I think, so I appreciate that you guys are doing that, because like, okay, it's there. So let's find ways to work with it. And let's see if we can shift what we're seeing in the room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And as you're saying that too, I'm like, I think what they're kind of doing with this clinic is kind of a truth intervention, right? It's kind of in that third step of like, your body can heal. You can get better. Let's intervene with that truth. There's nothing structurally holding you back from getting better. And then I feel like it's a truth and hope intervention that they're offering. And I'm like, that's kind of a cool way to kind of map that on. Yeah.
Yeah. What can you do type conversation?
Right.
I think that's one of the things that Terry really has us go home. It's like, hey, even if you have some disease, what can you do? Instead of looking at, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't do that. What can I do? I think that's such a powerful idea around, it's sad when you look at what you can't do. And that's, we grieve and we mourn that, but there is something powerful about saying, well, I can still love, I can still like pray, I can still do this, that, the thing, and learning how to flow with that versus focusing in on like that negative messaging, which would be looking at your pain cycle, basically.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
That's I love that. And the thing I love about my husband's field, like physical medicine and rehabilitation, is very function focused. It asks that question. It just kind of takes that kind of approach, which is kind of why he kind of feels like he's the right person to kind of sit in that space between neurology, or like usually this is kind of a diagnosis that comes through neurology, and he's like, but we're in the function business, like that's what we're here for. And like you were saying, connecting to what you can do, and for providers, you like you guys included, holding hope for what's possible is so healing, right? It really is. It establishes you're holding, if I can go back to where we started, like you're holding onto the hope of connection, whether that's neurologically or spiritually. You're holding onto the hope of that for someone. You're kind of stewarding that hope for someone, and it's a beautiful thing.
Love it.
She doesn't know. Are you going to meet us in Pepperdine next year for the Restoration Therapy Conference?
I would love to come. That
Mark
would
your
be
calendar.
amazing.
It's we got it.
You have the date? Let's hear it.
Is it I guess the
the
first
6th and
week?
7th or the
Yeah, I gotta look. It's the first week of March in
March?
2027 at
Okay.
Pepperdine.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to go to the last one, and
This is closer for you.
didn't work, but I would love to come.
And
March
no offense
5th
to
and
all
the
you
6th.
Amarillo people. This is much prettier than Amarillo.
We love Amarillo.
Pepperdine is
people.
beautiful. I will be
I
very
love
happy
Amarillo.
to go visit
If I can
Pepperdine.
surf Malibu, I'm at Malibu.
Hey, Lance, I think we found the doctor to run all of our research for us too.
Oh yeah.
Let's
She doesn't
keep
know it
talking.
yet. She doesn't
Yeah.
know it yet.
No, let's keep talking. This is so fun. I think this is just the start.
Cool.
I'm curious about, because you run, I guess there's kind of this integration of multiple fields for you. What do you find yourself like really excited about these days in terms of work, in terms of like vocation? Is there some direction or some theory or some thinker that you're just really like, this is awesome?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really enjoying Chuck DeGroat's work right now.
Mm.
His book, Healing What's Within, has been really powerful for me right now. And this kind of, he presents these kind of, the three kind of Genesis 3 questions of how God, kind of attempts to reconnect with us and heal us of kind of, where are you? Sort of what kind of shame are you experiencing? Who told you? And then where have you gone with your pain? And I love it. I think it connects with the kind of RT model as well. It's kind of like, in some ways, God is asking some of those questions that are involved in the steps. What it is that you've believed. Why have you believed that? What have you done with that pain? And then can we invite you into kind of a different narrative, and the whole Bible then presents like this other journey that we can then kind of go on. I've really been enjoying his work, and I think vocationally just feeling drawn more and more to care ministry or supporting care ministry within churches. And I've had the opportunity to work with some churches kind of in a consulting role, and have just really, really loved that. And even in kind of a lay staff role, it's been really, really fulfilling and really beautiful work for me, because I think people come often to the church before therapists, and if the church can steward that well, if they can help them find people to walk with them, it's just really powerful. And I think often the church doesn't always do that well, and I'm not blaming the church at all. It's just, it can be hard to make those connections and make sure that is happening.
Yeah. I feel like my heart goes out to churches, man. It's you're constantly, you talk about communication, like in squeaky wheels. There's always stuff that you're having to do. I really, therapy world, it's so nice. All we do is meet the soul, care for it. We don't have to do all the extra stuff. It's like,
Rhett, you've been in both. What do you see as the key challenges?
It was Lance. I think.
And Lance has you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, sometimes the grass is always greener. Sometimes when I'm sitting in my therapy office, I long for like some of those pastoral care days, like that look differently and operate differently, and the way that you can show up for people, and I miss those. I really do. And then there are days where I'm in the church or I'm talking to pastors, and I'm like, I appreciate the boundaries of like the kind of therapy office and the things that we do, but what I'm kind of hearing, and I've not read extensively on Chuck DeGroat. I read some stuff. I know who he is. He's also a therapist and leads retreats and is a professor at, I think, Western Theological Seminary. I think it sounds like what you desire, and I know Lance does. I know that I do. I know that RO, who was on here earlier, does. That theological, psychological, like whole person kind of integration. Is what
and I think the church also, within, RT, it's like identity and safety. Those are the keys to flourishing. And we have to have some theological conversations in order to answer those questions, right? Of like, do I have an identity, and can I be safe when I'm gonna die, I will die. It's like I will actually, from a physical perspective, encounter demise. Like that doesn't seem so safe. So
Yes,
I
as it
think the
turns
church is
out.
actually a very beautiful place to approach those questions. Um, and I just really think it needs to be one team, one dream. Like it just is best when practitioners in the church can team up.
Mm,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it makes a big difference.
I think that's why I was always drawn to like the books of like Henry Nouwen and stuff. As a guy who is deeply trained theologically and was a priest and wrote beautifully about the human struggle and stuff. And one of the reasons I like talking to you, Tamara, too, is you're embedded in academia, which I think is like really important to bring
Yeah. It's,
stuff to the table.
right. It's important to bring, we want things. I mean, this is cool. This is a nice moment of like, coming back to hanging out in the back of the pews with Rhett. Like, we want things to be intellectually honest too, right?
Yeah.
Like we don't want things just to like feel good in the heart. Like, yeah, I would really love to feel like I have an identity and that I'm safe. But also I want to feel like it's honest, it's true. Like I want to feel connected to truth as well, and that what I'm believing is really something trustworthy. And
Mm,
I think that those two, the marriage of theology and psychology, or the integration of them, is something that the human soul can rest. It's like, both are there, the heart and the mind, like
Mhm.
they can both like rest in that. Yeah.
what do you think makes that well? Like, how does that look good? Like when you find like back of the pews or whatever, like that moment where we've found a really nice like chord or harmony as we've blended, them together.
Yeah. Um, this wasn't in the course, so we didn't say we were going to talk about this, but like polyvagal theory is something I've been really trying to
Oh yeah.
explore. Like, what is it like for people to experience, for example, a preacher's state? Like
Mhm.
how does that influence how they're experiencing what they have to say?
Mm.
And I'm sorry if I'm just like dropping yet another theory, but
No,
hopefully,
this
I
is
think that's a
good.
fairly familiar one for a lot of the listeners. Um, you know, I've been like, is like trustworthiness from like from a pastoral team? Is that just felt? Is that something where you can just kind of it's about, and sometimes maybe it's just, and also like when people are like, I don't know, I just didn't connect to that. It's like, did you just need a different state? Did you need something that was a little
Yeah.
more escalate? Like, and that'd be fine, if that was good for you. I think, at least for me, Rhett, in experiencing you as a pastor, as a shepherd, there was something that was both, again, that like intellectual and then also embodied, that was like, this feels trustworthy. I feel, and I think I hypothesized that maybe it had something to do with just your state and what my body needed as a state to meet in
Mm.
that moment. I think there's nothing wrong with all the different states that our bodies can experience, but sometimes we find that match where we're like, okay, there's enough activation here, there's enough dorsal here, like that there's I can be
Yeah,
here, this feels okay.
that's interesting because it'd make one wonder too if I was if people interact with me over different seasons of life, if they would experience me differently and
Yeah.
and not as safe or as trustworthy or loving or whatever. And it says something about the continued work, I think, of for us the continued work of getting into our peace and showing
Right.
up in healthy ways.
Hmm.
But I'm glad when you were at Bel Air that's what you experienced.
Yeah, me too.
Lance has
And
written. He just finished his dissertation, um, and I think you write about polyvagal theory too, and
Yeah.
some of the anxiety
Yeah. I
stuff,
found it
right?
very
And that's
fascinating. I think it does blend well, particularly around like talking through, the difference between dorsal vagal, autonomic nervous system, and then the
mhm.
um, ventral vagus states, like, and to recognize them. It's literally like autonomic nervous system and ventral vagus are just basically, that's our pain cycles expressed in different
Oh,
polarities. And then the dorsal vagal would be, that's when we're in our state of peace, where we're able to connect. That's how you were connecting with Rhett in that moment, that he was very attuned with you and very, very able, not only, have this like creative element that allows you to connect with like, the scholars of your whatever. But there's also this piece where it's Rhett, he's my buddy. He's my bro. Like I can, there's this like safe, authentic connection that we can do. So that's, I find that, I'm sure we'll have more conversations with this down the road, but polyvagal certainly is I'd say polyvagal is way more complicated. I really love the simple nuances of restoration therapy, but they're all in the same umbrella. I would say.
I love how you map that on, and I'm thinking too, Rhett. I feel like you might say that in that time you experienced yourself as a little more activated, a little more sympathetic activation during that season of life for you. I know not long after you wrote your book on anxiety, like anxiety was really on your mind in that season of life, and you were about to get engaged to Heather. Like that, you have said it was like a really, stirred so much at that time in your life. But I look back, like you were saying, like if we met in different times in our life and our state, I'm like, I needed that at that time in my life. That's where I was. And like Lance said, you bringing in and integrating conceptual, ideas and it really, it met me where I was. And I think you guys probably know from your practices, sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's what's going on there. And I think that's why, but it's probably actually a lot more complex, but that's all I can kind of point to.
This is like, I have so many thoughts. I was thinking about, I'm going to go back to the college group for a second and just like thinking about that group of people, and I was thinking about the research on what like look at the, I can't blanking on the person's name right now. It's like a 60-year study on the transmission of faith over time through different generations. And the one ingredient they come back to is warmth, right? And when you look at the literature, warmth, I think, is embodied by safety and that. And I think about
what is that?
I think about the college group at those days. I'm not saying it doesn't matter if a church has all the right theology or they follow all these rules. If people show up and don't experience you in a warm, loving way, it doesn't matter. And so there was something about the people you ran with and maybe the space you're in and hopefully us leaders up front that made it feel at least warm, right?
Yeah.
Because I know there were churches up the road who felt like they had all the answers, that a lot of kids were like, well, they're the ones preaching the Bible. And so there's something that makes you feel safe. And Lance, we love C.S. Lewis I'm rereading the Chronicles of Narnia right now, or The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Nice.
When Lucy asks if Aslan's safe.
If he's safe, like, but he's good. Yeah.
He's definitely not safe, but he's good. And there's something, even though the world may feel chaotic, there's something that feels safe. And there's something about, and you put it in Peacemaking on week 10. There's something about being in your 4 steps and your peace that I think makes people feel really safe. And the fact that we can actually try to practice that, it's just not magic sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe some people there's something about them that show up in some pretty magical ways, but we have the ability to like practice in our marriages and with our students and our clients, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
Which is kind of so interesting, Rhett. I just kind of think about the differentiation between like someone who has like that great warmth embodied presence versus these other communicators. I'm not going to name any names, but the ones that ring the bells, the ones that like cause all the alarms. And there's this draw, and Tamara, you're on here today. I was kind of curious to hear your thoughts on this. Like, you have these, like, we're so drawn to the alarms from a communications lens, like, oh man, this bad, that draw, and it creates that weird state inside of us. I'm curious how that would What's up with that?
Yeah. Do you mean people that are like flashy? Is that what you mean by alarms? Like things, or do you mean alarms
Uh,
like that like act like get us like "Rrr," like I'm not so sure about.
yeah,
Sorry, say
tense.
more. I'm not
I
sure I
would say
understood.
tense, or like people that are communicating out of pain. I would say that
Yeah.
draw in audiences. That maybe when they're up there, like you're gonna go to hell. We'll just
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
or just weird things that are
And you're kind of like saying like, why are we drawn to that? Like, why do we still go to that? Is
yeah.
that,
What's up with
yeah.
that?
I don't know. I guess, yeah, I mean, RT is probably helpful for that again. I don't know. Same reason why we might stay in the pain cycle, right? Like, it
Yeah,
gives enough. It gives enough of a false, like, hope or something. Like, it gives something that will go after that instead. And it's not giving peace, it's giving maybe a sense of justice or something. I don't know. Like maybe a sense of vindictive, like I'm going to get, I'm
yeah,
going to get
yeah.
something from this, I guess. I don't know. I'm like just trying to map it onto RT since that's what we're doing.
No,
But
I mean, even just
I'm
from a
like,
communications perspective,
yeah,
I am curious about that. Like, why are we drawn to that thing, that person?
yeah, yeah. And
Insert any cable news channel.
right. I mean, and there is, I mean, so there are some concepts within sort of the kind of subdiscipline of rhetoric that would
Yeah,
kind of be like, there's different strategies for rhetorician. And one of them is sort of just like alarm, emotional alarm, right? Like that is a rhetorical strategy you can hit and it's effective. And that's like what all politicians do. That's their rhetorical strategy, right? It's like, let's hit that emotion button and emotional alarm. Let's get that going. Um, but I think as we've just said, it's like that again within our that keeps you spinning, right? You're
yeah,
just going to do that. And people, I think at some point, often I think of people who are really drawn to those communicators, often at some point that stops and they move on to some other communicator or
Mhm.
some other conspiracy or whatever, like
yeah.
because it's a false promise. It doesn't actually, I think we all do want peace and those kind of communication strategies can be, I think, a flash in the pan or like then we learn something about that person and we're really negative towards it or but it's interesting to think about. It's kind of both the sender and the receiver, to use the transmission model again, like
Heyo.
their peace states are kind of, yeah, that's interesting. Like it's like whether what kind of state the sender's in and what kind of state the receiver's in. This connects to some of the stuff we were just saying about me and Rhett, right? Like I guess if you're not in a peace state, you're gonna be drawn to stuff that's not too. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
What I if you put on your like professor, well, you can integrate all the
Dr.
fields that
Powell.
you're in.
Oh man.
Uh, what is there any like passage of Jesus or some other speaker in the Bible that you're like, wow, that just really embodies a lot for you, either personally or it's something that you think you would use as an example to teach?
Mm.
You know,
Yeah, it's specifically connecting to communication or
yeah, and
um
just maybe even this thing that we're talking about safety and other things too, how we
yeah.
experience people. Because I'm thinking
Yeah.
about your own journey too to faith. I mean, at some point, I'm sure there's some even like passage you read or something you read with a new lens
Mhm.
of Dr. Powell, right? Of like,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
I see this
interesting.
differently.
I think there's so many, but the one that's coming to mind right now is and I'm not going to be able to give you the chapter and verse, but when Jesus is right after he's flipping tables in the temple and people are
Yeah.
like, whoa, this guy's got some power and authority. And there's a whole group of people that like come to him and they're like, hey, like we're kind of, oh, wow, 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 you're, wow, look at you. And, scriptures tells us that he did not give himself to them. There was like kind of like this discernment. And I think I'm guessing it's an embodied discernment that we're kind of discussing, right? If he was like, you guys are not after peace, you're
Mm,
after power, and I'm not in, like, that's not the
Mm.
direction I'm going. I'm not going to give myself to you. It was a very differentiated response, right? It was like, no, that's not the way. And he's not mean or cruel to them, but he just kind of heads the other direction. And, um, I've thought about that scripture in terms of the class after peacemaking. We talk about leadership and differentiation and awareness, and I've thought about that scripture as it relates to that, about how so much of doing the work that we might be invited into with RT or other models for healing is really learning also to be like, what are the relationships that I need to have and to pursue peace? How do I need to work within those relationships? And I just think that was like a master class in scripture. And that, like, if you're saying put on the calm professor glasses, I'm
Yeah.
like, Jesus, you are differentiated and peaceful in your approach to expressing that differentiation. And I think we could all, I one of the things we do at the end of this class is trying to kind of build like some resilience, because all of the students are going into helping professions. And I think the whole class is sort of building toward a kind of resilience that Jesus also shows in that moment. Like, if I'm not going to give myself to people that aren't for the things that I'm also for, and I'm going to know who I am. And that's how I'm going to stay. That's how he stayed strong within his ministry and his call. And yeah, I don't know. That's the scripture that hits me right now.
So good.
That's a beautiful interpretation too. And
obviously he was for them. Actually, he came to die for them. So it's not that he was like, you guys suck. He was just like these particular relations. He didn't give himself in the same way to everyone, right? He gave himself fully to the three. It was like transfiguration. You get it all.
No.
Full access. To the 12, he gave so much of himself, and he gave a vulnerable self. He gave Gethsemane to them. Like he gave so much. But then, to the crowds, to the Pharisees, less access. Mm-hmm. Incredible differentiation and discernment that I think can lead to resilience in helping professions.
I love that. It's such a beautiful image of like knowing the call. Like, what, to me, that's like the one thing that kind of brings me back to center a lot of times is like hearing the voice, like following like, oh, just follow him. I don't have to like worry about all these things on the left or the right. Not politically, but I'm just saying in general. I don't have to worry about, these things. All I have to do is just lean into the calling. And, he wasn't trying to be a rubber rouser in that moment. He knew that there was something bigger and better and greater for everybody, which was to give of himself everything, which gave power to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. He knew that the needs of that crowd would be met by, like you're saying, staying true to the specific, like just really staying clear-sighted. Like, he wasn't disconnected from them. He was still connected to them and what they needed and wanted. And
I wonder if people's interpretation of that passage says something about their emotional state, because a lot of times when people are talking about it, they're referencing Jesus being angry and like, and rabble rousing, and
totally,
and gives them permission to turn over tables in their own life,
tables,
right? Yeah,
it's my righteous anger, Rhett.
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
give me my righteous anger, man.
But I love that it was this differentiated response, this out of like peace. Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's interesting to think about anyone's interpretation of scripture and state, so Polyvagal uses the like story follows state is kind of like and it's like, I think about my own engagement with scripture and state too. Like, I think early on before Bel Air, I would sit sometimes and like read my Bible with a flashlight in my room as a kid. And I don't know, like my state, it was different than in college, than in, like scripture hits different when the story hits different depending on your state. And I think part of the beauty of like the sanctification process is God makes you more and more peaceful, more and more secure in him. And so the scriptures open, like his beauty opens, the goodness of God opens and deepens. And and that may be related to kind of the state, that the more secure, safe, peaceful state that you're able to experience in relationship to Christ and what that does in your own body. That's cool.
So we're coming up on time here, and one of the things that like I was really excited about having you on today was I feel like you probably have, as a communication person, you probably have it, who works with health and mental health. I, I'm curious around this realm of if you could talk, like, our audience is mostly that I like to imagine all my closest friends. Just kidding. Um,
It's your
uh,
mom and your dad.
Yeah.
No,
but
just kidding.
hey, Dad, thanks for listening again.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of people that are trying to help people and
Mm.
care for people, and
Amen.
this is something that you've really put a lot of time and effort into. How would you want to encourage our our team, our people, on
Mm.
how to be better carers? I know you probably, this is like, 16 classes or whatever. But
Yeah.
if you were to give us a good bite or something to munch on here today, what would that be?
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but we'll just kind of say something.
Yes,
Like,
I like
I
it. I
just
like
think
it.
God wants that integration for you too. Like all that you want to offer to your clients, all that. And I think we all know this intellectually all the time. I know this in my own life, but I have to continually be reminded that God wants the goodness for me that I want for other people.
Mm,
That like that he wants that peace for me too. And I think often those of us that are drawn to the helping professions, like there's a real need for peace in our own soul. And God does that in different ways throughout our
mm,
life, all the stages. It's just, it is,
yeah.
that our own journey is just as important as any journey that we want to invite others on. And I know you two both personally embrace that. And I think I've really learned that from you, Rhett. I think that was really one of the things that most drew me in early on, was that like just the very personal nature of God and of what he has to offer, as well as the collective restoration that's offered. Yeah.
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know that that's too communication-y, but
No, I think that's
it's just,
beautiful. And we have to have that reminder, Tamara. I think you're absolutely, or Dr. Powell, that hey, where are you today personally? That care you're trying to give to that person across the way. Just take a breath, look in the mirror, and know that's for you too. That you are a loved person. That God is with you, or whatever that brings safety in your heart and your soul. Like, you're not alone. There is an invitation for you, as much as you're trying to care for that other person, for you to lean into for as well. That's beautiful.
that is so
I need to
sweet.
hear that.
Yeah, I'm like, thank you, Lance. I'm gonna go listen to your voice saying that tomorrow morning as I come. Like that was what a blessing you just offered. Thank you.
Mm,
It's like as you're saying that, Lance, it just reminds me of the power of like that third and fourth step, being able to say the truth out loud to yourself
yeah.
or within,
Mm,
how important that is.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Actually, I have one more thing I'll share.
Yeah.
Like, um,
yes.
I'm like, I want something communication specific.
Ha, ha, ha.
So a practice that I have started doing
Okay.
before I teach, or before I'm, presenting publicly something, like whatever that is, and you can get to feel a little like you're like, you could do your 4 steps. You could totally do your 4 steps, but also you may not have time. And so a practice that I've started to do is, if you're familiar with St. Patrick's breastplate prayer, it's a long, long, long prayer. You can't do the whole thing,
Yeah.
but within it has this idea of like God before me, God behind me, God around me.
Yeah.
And I've started before I go to communicate anytime. So for any of you that are engaging in communication of any kind, whether it's with a client or you're presenting on something, maybe maybe you're working on a graduate degree, like use your hands and just take a moment to just move. I just move my hand like this, before me, behind me, beside me, and I do a circle all around me. And it just helps me to then enter into that presentational kind of moment, from a a place of peace, because I've kind of just checked in about my identity and safety kind of before I do it.
Wow.
And it's just a nice physical practice that I just like. And I like ending it with that kind of circle. It just feels really centering.
Mm.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like, I want something
Especially the
like I'm
physical
here as the
manifestation,
communicator. So
like, you're above me.
right.
You're
And you
below
can't,
me.
when you're about to take the
Defend
stage,
me.
Rhett, when you're presenting, you can't necessarily do something big where you're like, but you
Yeah.
can take your hand, or you could even just take your finger on your hand, or trace on your hand behind you. Like if you're nervous, you could trace it in your palm of your hand behind you or something.
I could even integrate, like I do say the 4 steps anytime I speak backstage and when I'm walking up. I could even
could do the
probably
same kind of
integrate
thing,
some of the
right?
movements with it, because I know
Mhm.
we talk about the importance of just not saying that stuff, but like using some movement with it.
Mhm.
I love
That's
that. Yeah.
super helpful. I'm going to practice that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Even like practicing a prayer that has been used for
I
centuries.
just really love that prayer too. Yeah. It's just a
Yeah.
really beautiful one that feels very powerful and centering.
Yeah.
St. Patrick's
And it's all true for
breastplate
you today
prayer.
and for us.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry that I couldn't like recite it from memory, but if you want to
Okay.
read, do you
I'll
see
put
the
it in the
part that
notes.
yeah, we'll put it in the notes. Perfect. Yeah.
Do you have it in front of you, Rhett? I bet
Let
you
me
do.
see. I think I do.
Rhett is
Nice.
like Mr. I feel like he's got like some extra
So quick.
screen
He's
over
so
here.
fast.
He's like, oh, let
Is this
me
the
get it
one
from
that
the interwebs of my brain.
says, I
I'll
arise
find it real
today?
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rise today. Yeah, yep. So let me bring up the section the prayer begins with, I rise today through a mighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, through belief in the threeness, through confession of the oneness of the creator of creation. And it goes on and talks about I rise today, this, and it's sort of, just connecting with that peace and that power. And then it ends with this. It says, Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise, Christ in the heart of every man who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of every one who speaks of me, Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me. I rise today through a mighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, through belief in the threeness, through confession of the oneness of the creator of creation.
So good.
So good.
Well, let's end there because that's a beautiful way to end.
Yeah. Cheers.
And
Thank
Tamara,
you guys.
thanks for coming on today. And I know it's a special treat for everybody listening. And we'll definitely have you and your husband back on. We'd like to dive deep into that. I think that would be a really important conversation for our community.
Yeah, let's do it. That sounds great.
All right. Take care, everyone.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.